We got wood, we got a knife, and we got a saw. And we've learned a few basic techniques, so let's make our first project. Future me breaking in. I made a very significant error, if you will, or miscalculation when I started this project. If you notice it, if you know what it is, go ahead and drop a comment down below. It really did impact the overall project, and if you stick around to the end, I'll reveal what I did. For those of you that have watched the other videos, you know we have practiced long sawing, which is ripping. We have practiced sawing off, which is cross-cutting. So those are the sawing techniques. And with the knife, we have practiced the long cut, so that's with the grain. We have practiced the oblique cut, so going obliquely across the grain. We have practiced the bevel cut. We have practiced the concave cut and the convex cut. So multiple cuts that we have worked on. Now we're going to put all this together in one project. So to do this, we are going to refer to the Sloyd system of woodworking. So if you remember in some earlier videos, we talked about the book, Teacher's Handbook of Sloyd, and the Sloyd system of woodworking being complementary. You really need both of those because the Teacher's Handbook of Sloyd is where we learn about the exercises, and the Sloyd system of woodworking is where we learn about the projects that we're supposed to do. So when we look, let's pull the camera around so we can take a look at this. All right, in Saloman's book, he outlined some basic projects for beginners to use. And in his projects, they are based on what kids needed at that time. Remember, this is late 1800s in Sweden. So there's some things that were applicable to them that may not be applicable to us. So, you know, project number one is supposed to be a kindergartner pointer. So just a simple angled pointer that the kids would do. Project number two, we're now getting into a rake tooth for a plow or a flower stick. So these projects were designed for kids at that era, but Saloman does tell us in his books that the projects really need to be appropriate for the kids or the beginning woodworker wherever you are or whatever time period you are in. So he strongly recommends that you modify the projects as you go. So what we're going to do today is make a simple butter spreader or spatula. And this could be, you know, a lot of different designs that could go in here. We're just going to freehand something. It's very important that whatever is made, especially if you're dealing with children, we want them to make something that either they can use or that you can give away, that they can give away. The single greatest compliment to a woodworker is actually using something that they give you, okay? Whether it's a jewelry box or some other box or ornamentation, or whether it's a practical gift like a cutting board, a kitchen utensil, or something like that. If you want to encourage your new woodworker, use it. Words of encouragement are nice and they do go a long way, but actually using it is really important. So we're going to make something that just about any household could use and demonstrate to that new woodworker that they are on the right track. Let's come down a little bit closer here. All right, so what we're going to do is just outline a simple spatula or spreader. Okay, this is a piece of basswood, been laying around in my shop for quite a long time, and I know what you're thinking. Hey, this is cheating. You've already got a piece of wood that's dimensioned, and that's true. But even in the book, it says for beginning woodworkers, we should be giving them pre-dimensioned wood that they can focus on. We haven't learned how to dimension wood yet. So We got to give them a blank that they can start with. If you are doing this yourself, you can go down to the home center or the hobby shop, Hobby Lobby, anything like that, and you can get some pre-dimensioned wood. This is basswood. I was a little bit leery about using basswood for a spreader or spatula, but several carvers that really do excellent work noted on their website that basswood actually works pretty well. So let's start off by figuring out the handle. And we want the handle to be basically the same width as the wood here. So just using our finger. So we've measured that coming across here. All right. So that's going to be our handle, the inside of the handle. This will be the top. This will be the bottom of the handle. And then we need to kind of sketch out what the blade or the spreader part is going to look like. And I'm just doing this by hand. I don't have a pattern. Whatever design that you make that looks good to you will work. Okay, so don't worry about this line here. I just went too far. We're actually going to go from here up to here, and then maybe, starting from this corner, let's come in just a little bit more like this. What do you think? Maybe I've cut that a little too sharp, so we'll come in at a little bit different angle and then come across like this. All right, so all right. All of this is it's just a starting point. As we get into the carving, we can actually refine the shape a little bit. So what I'm going to do now is start with long sawing, and we are going to cut outside the line here. So we'll be cutting on this side of the line down to this point. That'll be our long sawing, and then we'll do a cross cut, and we'll cut off right around here. What this will do is eliminate a good chunk of the carving that we would have to do. So I've got my pipe clamp Moxon vise here. Any clamp would work. Don't think that you have to have a Moxon vise like this or any other. If you've got any solid surface where you can clamp this down, it's going to work for you. Okay, I just happen to like this. It gets it up at the right height for me. Let's adjust this camera a little bit more. Gets it up to the right height and helps me see what I'm doing. Let me get my coffee cup out of the way. All right, and we are going to start with the ripping teeth on the saw. Outside the line, remember this is, because this is a Japanese saw, it cuts on the pull stroke. And then what we can do is, with your younger woodworkers, get a two-handed grip here. Keeps that hand out of the way. You don't want those little fingers getting chewed up by a saw. Let the saw do the work. Just keep working your way down. It's going to take a little time. Just saw back and forth. I'll have to eliminate a lot of that noise there. All right. Now let's just rotate it here. Now we're going to do a cross cut. Even though we'll be cutting at a little bit of an angle, we are going to use the cross cut teeth because we're going across the grain more than we're going with the grain. You could, if you want it, just go straight down from here, and that might be good for your beginning woodworker. We're going to come in at an angle. unwind it here, and you can see now that we are a little bit closer to our line, but we've got plenty of room to work with. So, got my knife, strop, piece of leather with some stropping compound, helps keep your knife sharp. Always give it a good strop before you get started. If you make it a habit of stropping like this, you will actually have to sharpen less often. And then we can begin shaving. So first thing we want to do is kind of round over the top. So this is where we're going to start with a bevel cut or a long cut. So remember, the bevel is how you start taking off sharp edges. So if you had a piece of green wood, I would actually recommend you starting with that. So a piece of lawn waste of there's a lot of different woods that would work well for this. I don't recommend going with an oak, a hickory, anything like that that's got some well-pronounced grain. It typically means that there's open pores and it would tend to absorb things. But birch, river birch, silver birch, whatever birch you have, that would make a good one. Sycamore, any of the fruit trees, apple, pear. Now, I've not personally worked with apple or pear, but I hear a lot of people say how much fun it is to work with those type woods. And we're just going to come across until we have a more rounded surface. Now what you're going to have to do is work from both ends. Okay. Now I'm keeping this elbow right here. I'm keeping this elbow close to my side, and that prevents it from slipping and actually gouging you. If you were to leave the elbow hanging loose and you were pulling towards you, you could, especially if your knife is dull, you could come right in, slice across your abdomen, and we don't want that. Keep that arm in there nice and tight. Start your rounding. And just keep working your way down. Now, basswood is a good wood, especially for beginners. A lot of carvers use it, and I've used basswood for carving caricatures and things like that. Never used it on any type of utensil, but it is a very, very nice wood to carve. And you can notice here just these nice flakes coming off. Get a little rounded there. So while I'm working on this, I actually want to tell you about something that hit my inbox this week. You've heard me talk about Paul Sellers. If you've watched my other videos, you know that I'm a huge fan of Paul Sellers. I think he's a true master. And Paul Sellers has launched a new website. It's called commonwoodworking.com. commonwoodworking.com. And if you're watching this, it's probably because you are interested in beginning hand tool woodworking. And whether you're just learning or you're just interested in the work that I'm doing, it's all related to beginning hand tool woodworking. And this commonwoodworking.com is free. I went on the other day as soon as I got the message, because I am such a big fan of Paul Sellers. I went on, signed up, took a look around. There are guides and projects to do. I would say very similar to what I'm trying to accomplish here, except mine is really based off the Book of Sloyd. His is based off his personal experience, 60 some odd years of doing traditional woodworking and teaching. So if you're really interested in this, I really recommend you checking out Paul Sellers' work, commonwoodworking.com. This is in no way sponsored by him. He doesn't even know who I am. It's just it's a resource I found that I really liked, and for people that are serious about wanting to learn hand tool woodworking, that would be a great opportunity for you. So highly recommend it. Like I said, I signed up the day that I got that. I'll put a link to it down below. commonwoodworking.com. So you see how this basswood just flakes away? And after just a couple of minutes, we got some nice rounding going over there. We've got getting some shape on our handle. Got some tear out there. Remember what we talked about with grain direction? Making sure that you're not digging in and lifting up. So if you start carving in the wrong direction, and this basswood grain is hard to read. There's just not much to it. So you got to be careful about that. And because of that tear out, I had to go a little bit deeper than I was originally planning on doing. All right. So we did our long cut. We did our bevel cut. Now you can see here I'm coming in with a concave cut. And I'm coming in, but I don't make the turn and come straight out. Okay. That put me at too much risk of tear out, breaking things out. So I come in from this side, begin shaping it, and then I'm going to have to come in from this side and refine it a little bit. So you're going to be constantly shifting. This transition is absolutely probably the most difficult part of the whole thing. Transitioning from a long cut to a concave and back then to a cross cut. It's not so easy, but this is actually very nice wood to work with. Okay. Now, remember, I got to keep harping on this. I'm sorry if you're getting tired of it, but supported versus unsupported grain. There is no way that we can cut in this direction, going up and around, without breaking this. Okay? There's no support there. So we got to come in from this side and work our way down. All right. So even though this is basswood, it's still, we're working in end grain, and end grain is never as easy as long grain. Just look how that cleans up so nicely. Okay. Okay. Let's come around just a little bit more. Round that over. Work this side as well. All right. So then what we'll want to do is, once we've got some rounding going on there, we're going to flip over here and start coming at it from this side. Now, oblique, remember the oblique cuts? Use your thumb to help provide a little bit of leverage and also control. So we go from oblique to now the convex cut, which is rounding over. If you haven't noticed, I'm having a little trouble just keeping it. I'm trying to keep it in the camera frame. I struggle with that, trying to keep it in the camera frame while I'm doing some of these cuts, but I'm really wanting to do that. All right. Just really wanting you to be able to see what I'm doing in real time. All right, now we need to start putting some real bevel on this thing, because you notice it's got a flat bottom. No spreader has a flat bottom. So we're doing now long cuts. Quite honestly, this is more of a planing cut than a long cut, but they're really the same. You're cutting with the grain. It's just with a planing cut, you're slicing a little bit more flat like this. But that is so smooth there, just straight off the nut. Okay. Didn't seem to be cutting quite as well, so let's drop it up just a little bit. We'll come over on this side. All right, that's a true planing cut right there. You know, where we're not even covering the full width of the piece. The reason it's called a planing cut is because it's very similar to what you would do with a hand plane. And as we get into some more advanced techniques, we'll actually be using different planes to make projects like this. All right, let's reverse it. Elbow in, tucked in. Get this down just a little bit. Make it feel better, a little better in the hand. So, tell you what, because projects can change, and as long as we do anything that allows us to make a useful item with the skills that we've learned, it really does not matter what the project is. So, what ideas do you have for what a good beginner project would be? Remember, we've only learned basic knife skills and basic sawing, so it has to be limited to that. What can we make using basic knife skills and basic sawing skills? Now, there is a little bit of a debate I've read about carvers and the use of sandpaper. I've actually heard carvers say that if you have to use sandpaper, I guess I shouldn't say I've heard them say it, I've read where carvers have mentioned if you have to use sandpaper, then one, your knives aren't sharp enough and your technique's not good enough. Well, if you're a beginner, that is probably absolutely true, because your knife probably isn't sharp enough and your technique certainly isn't good enough because you're just learning. Otto Saloman does allow a limited use of sandpaper, especially early on. Once we learn all of our planing skills and things like that, then the need for sanding goes away. All right, see, still flat there. Can you see that? Still flat. We got to get that. We got to get that shaped down. But we'll make sure you work it from both sides. So you're saying somewhat. You know, I've never carved one of these before. This is my very first time actually doing a spatula. So if you're one of the ones that watch these in order, first of all, I really appreciate you doing that. That means a lot to me. Your comments mean a lot to me. So those of you that are following along in order, thank you. But you'll also notice that this is episode number 4, and I've already published episode number 5, so a little bit out of order there. The reason for that is I did some carving last week, not a spatula, but I did some other carving, and that was going to be episode 4, but the audio was so bad. There was a high-pitched squeal, and I could not get rid of it without deleting the audio altogether, and just didn't want to do that. So I apologize for being out of order, but this is really episode 4. For those of you coming in later, you won't notice any difference. So, all right, continue to work that down. Still feeling a little clunky to me. Now that doesn't mean it's not functional, but I think we're a little bit too heavy there. Let's take that down a little bit just to clean it up. Just give it a little bit more elegance, if you will. Now this is not going to be, because remember, this is a first timer, somebody that's never carved one of these before, brand new woodworker. We cannot expect perfection, okay? But the idea is to get, did you see that? Well, that was stupid. Maybe I should say foolish. That's probably a better word. I actually touched my my thumb on the blade. Luckily, I just barely touched it. Yeah. All right. We're just refining it. We're not really doing anything major to it. We're just refining the shape, making it feel a little better in our hands. So I could keep working on this, and I probably will offline. But for a brand new woodworker, especially if it's a child, we should not hope for perfection by any means. So the idea here is just get started. Just get started. Not perfect by any means. It's really not. There's a lot of refinement that can be done. You can actually take some sandpaper, clean this up. I am going to oil it up, but this is a neat little project just to get a new woodworker going. So just get started. All right, that's it until next time. I appreciate it very much, friends. Take care. God bless. All right, did you figure out what the problem was? Here is the first one. And this has got some oil and wax on it. Um, Look how clunky this thing is. It's thick. It just doesn't feel good in the hand. After I saw that, I went out and took the same pattern, except I started with a blank that was only a 1/2 inch thick. This one was 7/8 inch when I started. This one was only 1/2 inch. It took me a fraction of the time to do it. You can see it's still pretty rough. I haven't sanded it or oiled it, but feels better. It's got just a better design to it. So starting off too thick would have made it very difficult for a brand new woodworker, especially a child. This was much easier, much simpler. So if you're going to do this project, start with a piece that's about a 1/2 inch thick. It'll go much better for you.